Yes, hello again, and my name is Dr. Alan Eichelman, and I'm your host for Scholars in a Bar. Today we are at one of my favorite bars in all of New Orleans. Now, when you consider how many bars there are in the city of New Orleans, to say that I have a favorite is quite astonishing. But this bar is unique, very, very unique. It's called Bar Epilogue. And, well, as you see, it's located inside of a bookstore. It's the only bar I know anywhere located inside of a bookstore. And I'd like to introduce you to the owner of Bar Epilogue, Ms. Barclay Rafferty. Barclay!
Hey, Alan.
Hi, it's good to be with you.
Good to be with you, too.
And could you tell us a little bit about the whole establishment that you have here, where it's located and the significance of the location, and where you got this idea, this concept to put a bar inside of a bookstore?
Sure, I'm happy to. So my friend Carol Gelderman and I bought the Garden District Bookshop back in 2021. It was a crazy time. It was in the middle of COVID. We didn't know what we were doing, and we slowly but surely renovated this space, built out a restaurant downstairs called the Chicory House, and then built out this bar and named it Bar Epilogue because, of course, while I don't think it's the final part in our journey, it's definitely the final point in the renovation around here. So we got the idea from a couple of other bars that are around the country. There's the Rough Draft in New York. My husband visited and really loved it. We were just, in an experimental phase and decided that this is what we were going to do. It's really served the community nicely. We're happy that we see a lot of neighbors come, just like you, come and enjoy it. It's open from noon to 8 every day. We have small bites for lunch and for supper. And it's certainly not the type of dive bar that you would imagine in New Orleans. This is, kind of a more refined, slightly elegant space. And we're surrounded by all these wonderful books. How could you not love it?
It's if you were to do this in a private home, you'd have the bar area merged with the library in the house.
For sure.
And it is very elegant, and it's not like a regular bar. There's no bar stools here, but there is a cocktail lounge right in back.
Yep.
And so you actually have an opportunity to purchase a book, start reading it, and enjoy a wonderful cocktail with it.
And we see people do that every single day.
Yeah.
I will say, and I'm very happy about this, we feel like there are a lot of women, especially, who come into this bar. A lot of women don't feel comfortable going to have a drink at a dive bar because they don't know, who's going to interact with them, or really if they can just kind of keep themselves out of the fray. But women will come with a friend or by themselves, order a glass of wine, maybe a glass of champagne, maybe a cocktail, sit and read, and then go on to whatever their next step is.
Okay. Now, where is this located? Where are you located, and what's its historical significance?
So we're in a really fun building in the Garden District called The Rink. And it's called The Rink because in the late 1800s, it was built as the Crescent City skating rink during the Cotton Exposition, which was held at what is now Audubon Park. This was, in terms of location, about midway between downtown, where many of the visitors were staying, and Audubon Park. And so this was like an attraction. And it's a big barn-like structure that about 40 years ago, Barry Fox, a renowned architect, and Martha Ann Samuels, who is a realtor in town, they raised the foundation and built this arcade-like structure with lots of shops and a little coffee shop downstairs, because they envisioned a more European type shopping experience. Very frankly, it fell flat. It was a little avant-garde for its time. And when I was growing up as a kid in the neighborhood, it was kind of quiet, kind of sleepy. In around the same time as when Carol and I bought the bookstore in 2021. There was a new owner of the building, and he started to reimagine it. And we've been really excited to be part of that journey.
Yeah, and I will tell you that this space is now really used quite a bit.
It is.
And the Garden District bookstore is my kind of go-to place when I want to get a book, and even when I don't necessarily want to get a book, or at least I'm not looking for a book, I'll walk in here and see one that I just have to have. So I've been dropping a lot of money here lately, and loving it. So it is a great spot, and I really highly recommend people come here and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Because it is a
We
place
hope
to
people will
enjoy.
come.
It's in its own right a destination.
For sure. And it is, in fact, a destination, especially for a lot of people who love the author Anne Rice. Anne, for many years, considered this her home bookstore. She lived and wrote about the Garden District. And so we named a cocktail the Vampire's Kiss after so many of the themes in her books. And it's our most popular and probably our most unique cocktail that we serve. And I'm going to serve it to you guys today.
Great,
Fantastic.
wonderful.
So the cocktail is pretty simple. It only has 3 ingredients. It's made with tart cherry juice, 2 ounces. So I'll put 4 since I'm making 2 cocktails. And you can batch this ahead of time, which is really nice as well. Another red ingredient, 1 ounce of this fruitful, this is my preferred brand, Mission Fig liqueur.
Ooh. Ooh.
And then we use Jim Beam White Label because it's got some notes of vanilla, and people sometimes turn up their nose at it, but once they drink it, they really enjoy it. And we put a full 2 ounces each in this cocktail. It
Oh
is
boy.
not for lightweights.
I don't know if my wife Margina has had that or not, but you know Margina, and you know she's loves bourbon. So
I do know
next time we
Martine,
come,
actually.
we're going to have to
That's
order
how we
this,
met one
and
another.
she's going to have to try it.
She's the best. She's taught me a lot about wines and liqueurs over the years. Take it or Bryce.
I just actually wrote Jim Beam into a screenplay I'm working on.
Did you really?
Yes, a New Orleans lady who enjoys it a little too much.
Oh no. Well,
Sounds
again,
like
maybe those notes of vanilla, right?
Yeah.
So it's got a deep, rich, viscous mouthfeel. We really love it. And I like to serve it with an orange just floating on top. Here you go.
Lovely.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barkley.
You're welcome.
Karen, here's to you. Oh, I'm definitely going to bring
Oh,
Margina
it's
here to
so
taste
good.
this.
It's really good, isn't it?
It's so good. I think the Gabor sisters would have loved it.
I think so. I think they would have too. Yes, I agree.
It's not iced tea, Karen. Do not chug.
You know, you'd be surprised. We have seen people drink these really, really, really quickly. And the bartender, our regular bartender, Michael, he's here during the week. He's had to kind of remind, especially some people who don't look like they drink every day. Hold tight. This is a real solid cocktail.
Like a hurricane.
Like a hurricane, exactly. But not quite as sweet.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Too much. I like it too
So,
much.
folks, when you come here, you might want to order one of these special cocktails. This is probably the only place in New Orleans you can get this.
Definitely. This is
So if-
proprietary
Yeah,
to Bar
yeah.
Epilogue and the Garden District Bookshop
Yeah,
in
so-
honor of Anne Rice.
see why I like this bar? You see? It's just wonderful here. Anyway, thank you. Today we have as our guest scholar, and she's an independent scholar. She's not affiliated with a university, which Very often we have scholars that are affiliated with universities, but we also have independent scholars. And Karen Essex is an independent scholar. She is a native of New Orleans, which is where we are, of course, filming this segment of Scholars in a Bar, and a graduate of Tulane University. But she has been all over the world, and she is also a renowned author, best-selling author, in fact. And she has not only written books, but also written for the screen. So we're very fortunate to have Karen with us today. And we're going to be talking about one of her books. I believe this is your latest book, isn't it?
It is.
And it's called Run, Darling. Now, Karen, why did I say darling instead of darling?
Well, because the book is about the Gabor sisters, and I think anyone who remembers the Gabors remember that they called everyone darling.
Yes, in just that fashion, as you did it.
In just that fashion.
In just that fashion. And we have our own way of saying it here in New Orleans. We say
darling.
Darling, yeah, we say darling in New Orleans. That's quite common here. Now, a lot of people probably don't know who the Gabors were, especially the younger folk. My guess have no clue as to the Gabors were. So try to familiarize our younger viewers with the Gabors.
Well, it's if you're not old enough to remember the Gabors, it's hard to relate their impact. Their impact was in the 20th century. They were the most famous glamour icons of the century, and they dominated tabloids, TV talk shows. They had multiple roles on television and in film, and they were known also for not just being beautiful and glamorous, but for having many husbands.
Yes, and they were kind of the first of the crew that was famous for being famous.
Well, they weren't actually famous for being famous. That's kind of
really?
Today they're compared to the Kardashians, who are famous for being famous. But actually, Zsa Zsa and Eva both had more than 80 film and television credits, which you can see
each one of them
online. Each one of them,
yeah.
Absolutely, each one of them. But the reason I know about the Gabors is not because I was born in 1917, but because my grandmother and my great-grandmother and my great-aunt, who kind of raised me, they were fanatical Gabor fans. And so I grew up with, Zsa Zsa being talked about like she was a friend, Oh, have you seen Zsa Zsa's outfit, My grandmother and her sister Josie were actually buried in Eva Gabor wigs. They had wardrobes of Eva Gabor wigs in every color. So I was surrounded by the Gabors, and that's why I know more about them than most people my age.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember them myself, and especially I remember Eva from a television series called Green Acres.
Yes.
That she starred with, I think it was Eddie Albert.
Eddie Albert, yes.
And then also I remember Zsa Zsa primarily from her appearances on the Johnny Carson show.
Yes. She was on all the time because she was hilarious and outrageous, and she would say absolutely anything. And so Johnny Carson adored her.
Yeah, that's the sort of guest you want on a show like that, just as you are the sort of guest I want on a show like mine.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Also, they had three very distinct personalities.
Yes.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, beginning with, Zsa Zsa.
Well, I actually would love to begin with why I wrote this book.
Oh, okay, good.
Which was, I knew the Gabors as blonde-haired, outrageous, glamorous women, But I found out that they originated as a family of Jewish sisters who had to flee Nazism in the 30s and 40s. And I had no idea. I mean, I feel like I was raised with the Gabors, and I didn't know any of this. I had no idea what they had gone through to get to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, and to celebrity. I mean, they looked like they were born just with a silver spoon, but the truth is they had a harrowing journey from Nazi-occupied Europe to get to the United States. So that's why I wrote the book. You know, it's about their journey to Hollywood more than what they were once they reinvented themselves.
It's interesting to note that the book begins in 1933 and ends in 1945, so you really only cover a 12-year period. And it's a period of their teen years into basically their 20s.
Right.
And it is incredible what they experienced. I sometimes wonder how much of what we are reading, however, is true to fact and is literary embellishment, because your favorite genre is, which happens to be my favorite genre, is the historic novel.
Right.
And that is what you write, historic novels.
Right.
So you have to add a lot of dialogue in your historic novel that probably wasn't original, but you have to write it in such a way that people who know the historic figures buy it. They don't go, well, no, they wouldn't have sounded like that, or they wouldn't have done that. You have to write it in a way that it's plausible.
Well, I'll tell you that I am a fanatical researcher, a crazy researcher. I researched my Cleopatra books for a decade before I put pen to paper. I enrolled and finished the 2 graduate programs to write those books. I traveled to Egypt, Rome, Greece, everywhere that Cleopatra had walked. And then, only then, you know, after I had studied that world on a graduate level, did I start writing the book. And so I apply that same insanity to every book I write. And the difficult thing about writing the Gabor book was that every Gabor sister told every story differently.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
you know, it was hard to figure out which one was telling the truth.
And it's not, I wouldn't call what you do as insanity. I would, as an academic, I would call it academic integrity. So that's,
I do try to have that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
academic integrity is what I would call it. But at any rate, yes. And some fascinating things about how different these 3 sisters were, and yet how committed they were to one another.
Yes, they were inseparable. They were very competitive with each other, and yet they adored each other. And when they were apart, they did everything they could do to be together. But they were very different. The genesis of this book really was, I mean, everyone knows Zsa and Eva, but I was just looking on the internet one day, as you do, and I saw a picture of this beautiful red-headed woman in a fur coat, and it said Magda Gabor in New York. And I didn't know there was a Magda. And so that's when I was just fascinated. And so I started my, you know, deep dive research and learned that Magda was a resistance worker and a spy in World War II. And when I discovered that, I thought, how could a Gabor sister have done this? And so that's when I started my deep dive and just got fascinated.
After you read about the 3 of them, it's like, how could any of them have done what they did? It's
Absolutely.
Not just Magda. But I knew of Magda. I didn't know Magda. I didn't know her story in Europe. I didn't know that. I knew that the basic I knew was that they were Hungarian. They escaped Nazi Germany, but I didn't understand what an arduous, difficult task that was going to be for all three of them.
Well, it was terrible because as each tried to leave, the borders were tightening because of Nazi restrictions. And so Zsa Zsa, when she saw the writing on the wall, she had to take an extremely circuitous route to get to a boat so she could get out of Europe. And she made a trip that I don't think I would make alone today. You know, she traveled from Ankara in Turkey to Iraq, where the British were occupying Iraq at the time, and she thought, oh, the British, they're great, they will protect me. Well, instead, they confiscated her passport and said, some beautiful woman traveling alone must be a spy, which she wasn't. But she managed to get her passport back, and then she made her way through, remember, everybody's at war. It's called World War for a reason. So she made her way through these war-torn countries, the Middle East, to Basra. And then from Basra, she had to make her way to Karachi. And then from Karachi, she had to find a way to Mumbai, where the only boat, the only passenger ship that was still allowed to sail was going to sail to New York. And to think of a 21-year-old woman making her way by herself with a lot of luggage, mind you.
Well, she'd have to have
had a lot of luggage.
Zsa Zsa.
But she had no money except for a few diamonds she stuck in her bra and used them to bribe her way all through Europe and the Middle East.
And then the other thing that's interesting about her, when the book opened, she's only 15 years old.
Yes.
And it amazed me. She was a tomboy.
She was a tomboy.
Who would have thought that Zsa Zsa Gabor, the glamour queen of America, was a tomboy?
I had no clue. When I read that, I was stunned because, we think of Zsa Zsa and her beautiful, all her diamonds and her hair, and indeed, once she became a celebrity, she had a whole hair salon in her home. But she was the junior fencing champion of Hungary, and she was a very accomplished equestrian, which she actually maintained her whole life. So she was a tomboy. Her favorite thing to do was to dress as a boy and go to the boxing matches with her father.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
But the other thing about her that you mentioned in the book, and this is where I wonder how much of this is true and how much of this is Zsa Zsa embellishment, okay?
Well,
yeah.
Zsa Zsa didn't ever talk about what she went through, not publicly. She did not talk about, none of the Gabors did. Once they got to the United States, they really buried what they had been through, and I found out about it by reading transcripts of interviews that were done with people who knew them, with Zsa Zsa's daughter, Francesca, who sadly died before Zsa Zsa died. Francesca died quite young, but Francesca told the stories more. The Gabors wanted to be seen as glamour icons, and that is how they were seen. They did not want to be seen as women who had been through too much.
So, what is your opinion about the stories that she danced with Adolf Hitler?
I think that is true. I do believe that's true. Her husband, Zsa Zsa got married at 16 to get out of Budapest. And she married a very, very wealthy and important Turkish diplomat. And he had a relationship with Hitler and Goebbels. They were a little palsy, and so
for a while.
For a while, and so this is something she did talk about, that she would be eavesdropping on her husband's conversations on the phone, and he would be talking to Hitler or Goebbels, and I think that is that is absolutely true. That because historically, if you look at the research, it is true that they admired her then husband, Burhan Belge, and that they intended to raise him to be prime minister or president of Turkey, because Kemal Ataturk, who was the dictator at the time, was very old. He was a notorious alcoholic. His liver was failing, and so the Nazis thought, we've got Burhan Belge. You know, Turkey's a very strategically located country, and so they were going to raise him. He turned on them.
Yeah.
They didn't turn on him. So that part of Zsa Zsa's story is true.
What about her affair with Kemal Ataturk?
She described it in vivid detail, and it's certainly in character for Zsa Zsa Gabor to have had an affair with Kemal Ataturk.
No, I didn't have the
I
character.
don't know.
The being in character, I didn't have any problem with. It was the veracity that I was concerned with. But you're saying it was you described it in great detail.
I wasn't there, but
wow.
I decided to trust that.
Okay.
There were a lot of stories not told by the Gabors, but told by others, you know, that I decided not to trust. I thought they were outrageous. People wrote sort of exploitive books about them, you know, and
sure.
things that they did.
Sure.
And so a lot of that was just tabloid trash. I ignore stuff like that.
Well, what about later on when she finally gets to America in the 1940s, and she's still very young? She's
21.
still very young. And she hooks up with none other than Conrad Hilton.
Her charisma was apparently extraordinary. I'll tell you a funny aside that's not in the book. You know, my brother worked with her. My brother is to brag, my brother's an Emmy Award-winning sound mixer. And my brother shot a commercial with Zsa Zsa when Zsa Zsa was like 80 and my brother was like 22. And my brother said she was unbelievably sexy and charismatic at 80. So, you know, I never met her, but I believe in her charisma.
She lived to be almost 100.
She lived to be almost 100. Her later years were difficult because she had, I guess she had diabetes. She had to have a leg amputated.
Ooh.
So she really withdrew and didn't want to be seen that way.
Yeah, no, because she had an image to maintain for sure. Let's switch a little bit to Eva.
Eva.
Okay. Now she was the youngest.
Yes.
When the book begins, she's like 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's anyone that had a dream when she was very young and managed to accomplish it, it was Eva.
It was Eva, and she did it. You know, apparently she told everyone in her family from the time she was about 8 years old, I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to be a movie star. And all the Gabors were indoctrinated into sort of movie fandom because their mother had wanted to be a film star. You know, she used to go see all these Theda Bara silent films, and she thought, well, this is my destiny, I'm beautiful. But her family had a different fate in mind for her. And so at 17, they pushed her to marry this older, wealthy man. But she gave her daughters this love of cinema. And so from the first time Eva went to a movie, she started telling people, I'm going to be a star, I'm going to Hollywood. And everyone laughed at her because she was a little girl in Budapest.
Yeah, a little girl in Budapest who ended up getting to Hollywood, ended up becoming exactly what she said she wanted to become. The story is fascinating from that perspective. And the other thing that I found very, very interesting was the mother, Jolie, who was the quintessential stage mother. And she was determined that her daughters would live out her dream.
Yes.
And in reality, they did.
They did.
In reality, they did. And they all had this kind of charisma that Zsa had. Maybe Zsa was the most flamboyant, the most charismatic,
Yes.
but certainly Eva had it and Magda had it, and they were incredible in terms of their persona, all of them. But Magda was different in that sense,
Very different.
because Magda, well, she was always kind of from what I get in the book, she was the pragmatic one.
Yes.
And Zsa was the impulsive one. And Eva was the dreamer. Is that a correct way
I think
of...
that's very true. Magda was very practical. She was also studious, and she was more introverted. You know, Magda literally saved her parents from being executed by the Nazis at the last minute. And she only did that through wit and perseverance and determination. But once they got to Hollywood, Magda was always sort of quasi-interested in show business, but not really. And the Gabor sisters actually had a Las Vegas act together, the three of them, for a few years. But then Magda withdrew, and she married a man who she was apparently very much in love with. And but she never really, you know, she was still in the society pages. She and her husband were big socialite entertainers. They had a house in the Hamptons that, you know, celebrities always wanted to go to. So, but she was different from the other two in that she withdrew from performing.
She was more interested in business than in show business.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, because when her husband, Tony Gallucci, died, she became the CEO of her mother's jewelry business. I mean, just to sort of demonstrate how resourceful these people were, they came to Hollywood, New York, with nothing. Jolie had been a successful jeweler in Hungary. She raised money to open her own jewelry shop in New York and then in Palm Springs, and she became even more successful in the U.S. than she had been in her own country.
Yeah, Jolie though was very, I guess the best way to put it, stubborn, but stubborn on steroids.
Stubborn on steroids, but I like to tell the story of what Jolie used to tell her daughters, and they claim that this got them through all the difficulty that they had to go through in their lives. She told them from the time they were little that they had the blood of Hussar warriors, Genghis Khan, and Attila the Hun flowing through their veins, and that there was nothing they couldn't do and no one they couldn't conquer. And so they all said that that was what got them through so many horrific experiences.
I take it you've been to Budapest.
Oh, yes.
And are the people in Budapest exactly like that, or?
It's hard for me as an outsider to say. You know, I don't know that many Hungarians personally, so I really don't know. I think the Gabors are extraordinary. You know.
Yeah, they are an incredible family when you really get down in this period of their life where this was all happening. What they had to overcome and did overcome.
Yeah.
And ended up even wealthier and more famous in America than they were as aristocrats in Hungary.
Yes, and I mean, as we know, it's not like show business is not competitive. You know, I mean, it's an extremely competitive world for these women to enter. English is not their first language. but they were able to use everything they had to the fullest extent. And I think it also speaks to the resilience of the Jewish people, because let's face it, for thousands of years, there have always been people trying to erase the Jews, and there's just they've never been able to do it. So
There's a jealousy that a lot of people have relative to the Jewish people, and they have it because they seem to rise to a level of success that the rest of us poor mortal souls don't seem capable of.
can only dream of.
And only dream of. And I think part of the reason for that is just exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anybody that goes through that much terror and turmoil is going to end up being separated from the rest of the population.
Yeah.
And literally they were separated from the rest of the population. So they always had to make their own way. They always had to find a way out and a way to achieve. And they've always been very successful at doing that. It's just a necessity of survival. That's all it is a necessity of survival.
Absolutely.
And so why is God's chosen people? Why is that chosen people chosen for such persecution and suffering? Well, maybe because that is what leads to ultimate success and victory. And it has for the Jews consistently.
It's funny you should say that, because I am not Jewish, but I was married to a Jewish man. My whole social circle is just about all Jews. And
Our good friend Randy Feldman.
Yes, is one. And I am studying Kabbalah. I've been studying Kabbalah for a couple of years. And Kabbalah teaches that the growth of the soul, the growth of the human being, only happens through suffering. That when everything is wonderful and you're happy and you're, that's great, but you're not growing. That growing comes out of suffering.
Well, as a religious scholar, I understand how key the concept of suffering is to the world's religions. And it's certainly key within Judaism, it's certainly key within Christianity, and it's certainly key within Buddhism as well.
Yes.
And if you take a look at those world religions, the concept of suffering it's the question of what the scholar Blaise Pascal called theodicy, which is, why is there suffering? Can you justify the suffering in the world? And that's literally what theodicy means. It means God justification. And that is so central within the religions of the world, but especially within the three that I just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Especially within those three. And it's always through turmoil, it's always through suffering that growth occurs, and a heightened sense of awareness, a deeper consciousness. And yes.
We don't like to think that, but I can see in my own life how suffering has led to moments of grace and growth and expansion. So apparently the wisdom is true.
Yes. And it reminds me, since it was just a few weeks ago that we celebrated the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it reminds me of one of his great quotes. The Reverend Dr. King said, "You will never know what you want to live for until you know what you are willing to die for."
Wow. Yeah. That's
And that for him was a lived truth. A lived truth. It's very, and I mentioned that to somebody. He said, "That's deep," but I said, "Yeah, and it's also true."
Can I tell you something funny?
Yeah.
Off topic, not to do with the Gabors, but I have friends who are fanatical about their pets, their cats, and one actually said to me, "Well, having a cat is just like having a child," and I do have a child, and I said, would you die without even thinking about it for your cat? She said, why? Well, no. And I said,
Then it's not like it, no.
there's the difference.
Well, we're cat fanatics. My wife and I are cat fanatics, and we have 5 of them inside. But as she likes to point out, they don't go to college, and we don't have to buy them tennis shoes.
That's great, exactly. But speaking of animals, one amazing thing about Zsa Zsa Gabor
Yes.
is that she loved animals, and she was an animal rights activist all her life. She and her daughter Francesca started an animal shelter. She was decrying fur way before it was fashionable to do so, and her I guess empathy with animals was just enormous.
It was, and it began with her, as I recall, right at the beginning of the book, with her horse.
Yes, her horse.
She was like completely bonded to that horse.
She was, and she bred horses and rode horses. I mean, she rode horses. She bred them until the end of her life, and she rode them for as long as she possibly could physically do so. She was a true equestrian, and she bred some award-winning horses.
She was also, if I remember correctly, put up by none other than her mama, who wanted to change her image for Miss Hungary. I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
This is a true story because it is recorded not only in books, magazines, but also there's video I just recently discovered, Hungarian video. Zsa Zsa was a mess. She dressed in boys' clothes. She didn't want to be feminine, but her mother decided that she was going to be a beauty queen and a star. Just decided it because she was charismatic. She said, Zsa Zsa, you're just too hard-headed. No man is ever going to want to marry you. So we're going to turn you into a star. And she dragged Zsa Zsa to a salon. She was only 15, had her redone from head to toe. She said, this heathen needs everything. So she had a total makeover. The mother drags her to and enters her in the Miss Hungary contest, lies about her age, gets her in, and she wins. She wins first place. But the organizer realized that she was underage, and so he took her title away. But for the remainder of Jolie Gabor's life, she told everyone that her daughter had been Miss Hungary of 1933.
Oh, so typical of Jolie.
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Jolie and Truth were not, they lived very far apart.
Yes, yes. I won't go into the truth thing right now. It's too painful of a topic. But I do want to talk about Magda some more.
Okay.
Magda, as you pointed out, she was a spy.
She was a spy.
And she was also a Polish princess.
That as well, a duchess.
And that is a fascinating story. Not a Polish princess, a Polish countess, excuse me, a Polish countess.
Yes.
And she used that.
She certainly did, wouldn't you?
I
know I would.
So how did she get married to a Polish count, and how did she end up being a spy for the Allies? And
Well, her mother, who we now know was the boss of everyone, her mother decided that Magda was going to go to London and for the season. And she instructed Magda to associate with all the aristocrats and marry one. That was Jolie's dictum. So Magda did it. She went to London. She met this gorgeous Polish count who was also a fighter pilot, fell madly in love with him, and married him. And unfortunately, when she got to Poland, she realized that, like so many aristocrats of the 20th century, he still had the title, but there was no money. And so she moved into this crumbling castle. But being the heroine that she is, when the Nazis rolled over Poland, it was a devastating 2-day conquering of a people and a country. Magda put on a Red Cross outfit, somehow got a big van, and smuggled her husband, who was wounded, along with 6 other wounded fighter pilots, smuggled them out of Poland and into Romania, where they were met up. They met up with the British Army, because the Brits had made a deal. If you can get Polish fighter pilots out of the country, we will take them into the British Air Force. So Magda, just using wits, and she was very good with languages, she got them out of Poland. And the story of how she became a spy is...
And then he became an RAF
yes,
pilot.
He became a pilot.
Fighting with the British.
Yes, he fought in the Battle
of Britain, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's an amazing story, because the Gabors seem to be like the Forrest Gumps of the 20th century. Like wherever there was action, there was a Gabor right at the center of it. But then when one of the failings of the Polish Count was that he had a thing for kitchen maids, which she also found out about. And so when they moved to England, he fell in love with a British kitchen maid and told Magda he wanted a divorce. So Magda at this point is looking at her options, and her parents have refused thus far to leave Budapest. Nazis are closing in. It's so obvious.
And it wasn't Vilmos so much that was...
It was Jolie who was like, no, I'm fabulous. I have this great jewelry company. I know everyone. No Nazi is going to touch me. They just want those awful intellectuals. That's who they want. They don't want wonderful people like me. Well, we know the fallacy in that. They wanted every Jew. So Magda went back. Her sisters were begging her to come to Los Angeles, save yourself. Instead, she went back to Budapest and saved her parents. And she did that partially by becoming a spy for the Portuguese ambassador.
Yeah. And that's, first they did go to, she was in Portugal at the time. She went from Britain back to Portugal and from Portugal to Budapest, if I remember.
She went from Britain to Budapest, got her parents safely away from the Nazis, then went to Portugal, and then from Portugal, Magda had to figure out how to get her parents to the United States, and herself also, because Hungary was an ally of Germany.
Sure. Yeah.
And so the Hungarians were considered alien enemies. And that's when Zsa and Eva made a little trip to Washington, D.C., and used their wits and their charm to get politicians to help them get their parents to the United States.
What a story.
I know.
I know you've written screenplays.
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, have you decided maybe to take either all or part of this book, the whole of the book may be a little much for this, and turn it into a screenplay?
Not a screenplay, but there is actually talk about making it into a TV series, like a mini series.
Mini series, because to do justice to this 430-page book, you're not going to be able to do that in one even 2-hour film. It's going to have to be segmented. So if you do that, and then a mini series would be awesome. I know I would watch it for sure.
Well, thank you. I've actually had offers to do a mini series, a limited series about the Gabors, but the offers have not been to do this story that I want to do. It's to do the Hollywood glamour years, and to me, that's not the story.
It's not
What's
the story.
The story there? That's
it's not
just
the story, and the thing
not
is,
the story.
you could maybe the final segment of the miniseries, you could portray that moment of glamour that followed all of this, but not as the focus of it. No, that would be no. That wouldn't hold my interest, that's for sure. If I want to see something like that, I'll just look at the Kardashians. I mean,
Yes, exactly.
why would I look? But this is so intriguing. This is so compelling.
It is. I know people tell me that the book reads like a thriller, even though we know we know that they didn't die, but the sort of the things they went through and the scrapes they got into and the near misses and everything. And so I just think when you have a story like that, why would you just want to tell some glamour story of pretty women who married a lot of men?
Married a lot of men and got very exceedingly rich.
Yes.
Yeah, so no, we don't need that.
No.
No, there's plenty of that out there now. We don't need that.
Too much out there now.
Yeah, too much. I agree. So, well, keep working on doing what you want to do, because I think what you want to do is correct.
I think so too.
Yeah, I really do. Well, with that, Karen, I'd like to say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's been great, and I
Absolutely.
hope our paths cross again, maybe when you do another book, or maybe on another book, we can do it again. But I do want to recommend, read, run, and I'm going to say it again, Darling.
Run, darling.
Run, Darling by Karen Essex. It reads like a thriller, and so much of it is historically true. It is incredible how these three women navigated the most difficult situation they could possibly navigate in the whole of the 20th century. How they came in contact with some of the leading figures of that particular time. It is just amazing. And as I said, a historic novel is one of my favorite forms of literature, and Karen Essex is a master at it. So please,
Thank you.
bye, run, darling.
I only pay him a little bit to say that.